Here are 5 reasons why Houston, Texas is a resale gold mine where it's endless with opportunities, and really uh, resellers of all levels can get started making money, sourcing, and having success here. First reason is the density of sourcing outlets. Houston has literally almost endless um, portfolio, a catalog of places to source. Houston has a extensive Goodwill presence. 85% of residents live within 5 miles of Goodwill. Um, we have a booming thrift store culture and community that's supported by flea markets, and that nature. On top of that, there's a growing liquidation business industry that's popping up, where you have places like Crazy High Deals, Crazy Boss, where you're getting the liquidation items. So basically, the volume of places to source, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes or do some intense research on retail arbitrage to find great deals and great inventory to source in Houston. So that's the first thing that sets Houston up to be a gold mine. Second is the logistical makeup of the city. What's rare about Houston in comparison to a lot of other major cities, especially of this size and scale, is logistically you can actually move around Houston one side to the other, outside of rush hour, pretty efficiently. You can get from one side of Houston to another side of Houston usually in 30 45 minutes. I regularly have days where I start at one location, go on another side of town to another location, come back to the same location that I was at originally, go somewhere else, then come back to the same location that I started at. So Houston allows you to be able to flow throughout the whole city in a way that you can't drive from one side of LA to the other side of LA in the middle of the day and expect to get back to where you started, in any efficient amount of time. You can't drive from one side of Atlanta to the other side of Atlanta at 1 o'clock and expect to be back to your home destination at 2:30. So Houston not only has this density of source and outlets, but also has this logistical setup that allows you to actually be able to get to a larger amount of locations than you would if you were in most other cities. Most people in most cities don't have access to this many sourcing outlets day to day. Third, what I mentioned earlier is the growing liquidation business industry. Liquidation industry works basically where somehow I guess they're getting some type of maybe either return products. There are several legal laws on what companies are allowed to actually do with return items. So these liquidation companies are buying those. This is a $600 billion industry. And what they do is they have these daily sales. So it'll start on Friday. I think when a lot of them get their newest inventory, everything there is $10. Then Saturday, $7, Sunday, maybe $5, Tuesday, $2. And I went in some of those stores. Literally have had $2 buys that have been items that I've been able to sell for $30 or $40. So that community in and of itself sets a lot of people up for wins. Now you have to be careful what you buy because there are some limitations on selling those things on certain platforms. Fourth, the extensive Goodwill portfolio. One of the things that's unique, Goodwill, as I said earlier, 85% of people live within 5 miles of a Goodwill. But in a lot of towns, they don't have every type of Goodwill. Most towns, a lot of times you'll have cities that they'll just have the Goodwill Connect or, the Goodwill Supercenter, which is going to be your standard retail that you think of when you think of Goodwill. But Houston has the full portfolio, meaning Houston has the Goodwill outlet where you're actually getting things out of the canisters and you're paying by the pound. I think it's $1.19 for clothes, maybe $2 something for electronics, but you're actually sourcing and paying for stuff by the pound, which gives you a a great opportunity to stretch, the amount of inventory you're able to buy. Not only that, Houston is supported by a Goodwill Connect, where you're actually able to go into a Goodwill store and buy printers, retro cameras, electronics, RAM, computer accessories. If you're into fixing up computers, at a very nominal price, that really, allows you to compete out the gate by just sourcing from there. And then on top of that, we have the Goodwill Connects, which have, your standard Goodwill retail setups. And our Goodwills have an excellent selection. I've sold a pair of Gucci loafers that I got out of Goodwill for like $250. There's quality stuff in a Goodwill. And quick side note, the act of donating to charity is actually an act of the wealthy. That's why you have so much good stuff a lot of times with Goodwill. In the hood, we don't go, it's an act. So that's the reason why a lot of times you have the level of quality stuff you have. And lastly, Houston is a city that, now, disclaimer, always take precautions, but Houston is a city that offers many outlets for generally safe meetups. We have police stations where, they have a section where you can meet people if you're doing like a in-person meetup off OfferUp. I haven't had any problems just meeting people at like Walmarts. It's not a grimy culture, as much as some other cities where y'all wouldn't be as comfortable. Hey, my family's from New Orleans, went to high school in New Orleans. I love New Orleans. Hey, I'm not meeting nobody in New Orleans to give them the PS5. Nah, I'm just not. All due respect to the 504. My family from Detroit. I'm not meeting nobody in Detroit to sell them an MPC. But Houston has an environment where it's generally safe. And granted, that doesn't mean that you don't need to protect yourself at all costs. And also we're open carry state, but in comparison to other cities, and I really have heard minimal issues of someone having problems with meetups out here. So that's 5 reasons why Houston is a resale gold mine. Check out my upcoming book, Why Reselling in Houston, where I'm just basically explaining the reselling, but exclusively just to the H because it's that great of an opportunity here. So Flip School.